Hello, and welcome to the Community IT Innovators Technology Topics Podcast, where we discuss nonprofit technology, cybersecurity, tech project implementation, strategic planning, and nonprofit IT careers. Find us at communityit.com.
Hello, and welcome to the Community IT Innovators Voices interview series. My name is Carolyn Woodard, and I'm the Outreach Director, and I'm so excited today to be talking with Ann Corran. Ann, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, Carolyn. It's so great to talk to you and not be talking about budgeting or marketing numbers. This is a lot of fun. So my name is Ann Corran, and I am the Financial Controller at Community IT. It's an unusual name.
Is that Irish?
It's Scottish. My husband's family was from Australia.
Okay.
So they're originally from the Isle of Man, which Corran is, it's like a Manx name. It's a Celtic name. And I have been here for 28 years. So I am quite sure, in fact, I am sure I am the longest tenured employee owner at Community IT. I'm not the oldest, but I'm the longest tenure. So I'm very proud of that. I have a degree in accounting and business many years ago, and I was a young professional, and I worked in the banking worlds, and I worked in the government worlds doing government auditing. And then I had two children very close together, 2 years apart. And back then, you couldn't really work part-time. You couldn't work. There's no such thing as working from home, at least in the professional world. So I decided to stay home with my kids. I was home for about 5 years. And then a family friend was working at this new company in DC. We live in Silver Spring, Maryland. He was working at this company called Reliacom, started by Chris Chang, and they did IT work for both nonprofits and for-profits. And they needed someone to help with their finances. They were a young startup, just like all the IT was back then. And they didn't really have anybody doing their invoicing or their accounting or their financing. They were just immersed in this world, new world of IT. So I thought, well, this is a good way for me to keep my foot wedged in the door as a woman that's staying at home, but wanting to get back in the professional world, but not full time. So I said, look, I can help out as long as you can figure out a way to set me up at home and I can work part time. So that I just kind of tossed that out there because back then you didn't do that. You just didn't do that. And Chris Chang was great. And he said, sure, let's give it a try. And so these young IT guys came into my basement and in our guest room where my husband's office was. He was working on his master's, and I took over the other half, and we would put the kids to bed, and then we'd both go downstairs. I would start doing the dial-up. I think it was dial-up computer, and try to do the finance and accounting for Reliacom. So that's what I did. And then David Deal was working there, and he was passionate about helping nonprofits. He really felt that the nonprofits in DC were being overlooked for their IT needs. And I just loved Dave's passion for this. And he said, hey, I'm going to go out there and start this spin-off company called Community IT, which will do IT work only for nonprofits. So I just thought that was great. I'm from a family where my dad worked for the Justice Department. My mom worked with disabled kids. So you always felt like you had to give back somehow. And being in the finance world, working in banking, I didn't feel like I was given back. So I felt like this was a great opportunity to share my talents because I felt I am good at what I do, and to help this company help other companies, which are the nonprofits. So it was a way for me to support the nonprofits in my own way. So I followed Dave Deal, and here I am.
So what is your title now? I mean, I imagine that your role has changed a bit. It's clearly, we don't use dial-up anymore, luckily. So from those early days of, being the accountant to what you do now, like what is your role and like what's a typical day now for you?
Well, initially I started off doing just about everything. So payroll, HR, all the financials. And I realized that what I really, so I embody, I think, one of Community IT's mission for their employees, which is work-life balance. So whether it was when I had young kids at home, or now that I'm pretty active as an empty nester with my own life, I've always just loved that work-life balance that Community IT offers. So I pared it down. The role that I wanted was the financial controller, where I am responsible pretty much for all the money that comes in the company and that goes out of the company. So on a day-to-day basis, I'll be looking at the cash flow in the bank. I'll be doing all the invoicing for the company, all the accounts payable, so any purchases that need to go out. I make sure we have the funds needed for our payroll, although I don't do that. We have an HR department, but I provide the funds for that. I evaluate all our internal controls and systems to make sure we have a very efficient but secure finance department. And then most importantly, I provide all the financial data for our leadership team. So every month I do revenue reports, I do financials, and these are all shared with our employees. So Community IT is wonderful in sharing what our finances are. We're not trying to get rich. We're just trying to provide a good work-life balance for our employees. And most importantly, our mission to support these nonprofits that are doing this great work. So that's kind of my day-to-day. Sometimes I'm working, 8-hour, 10-hour days. Other times I can take the day off and go biking. So I do work part-time. I'm back to 30 hours a week on the average. And it's worked out really well. I was able to move here to Fort Collins in Colorado from the DC area and still keep this position and watch over the company.
I think you are kind of our institutional knowledge of just kind of the heart of the company and our company culture as well. Are there different things, because Community IT is an employee-owned company, are there different financial things that you have to do? You mentioned sharing financials with the employee owners. There's a lot of transparency around our financials, but are there other things that you need to know about or you had to learn about when we became employee owned?
No, that is handled. We have an outside consultant who is our ESOP, so employee stock ownership. It's called the ESOP. It's very complicated, so we do have a consultant to help us with that. We have internal employees that are advisors to our ESOP. So no, there's not really anything different. It's just that our culture has been there's nothing really hidden about our finances. It's given to the leadership team every month. The leadership team shares that with the employees. So no, I wouldn't say. We've always been very open about our finances, and so we're very fortunate. I'm fortunate because we have great clients. We don't have an accounts receivable problem. They're happy to pay their invoices. We charge very good rates. I think we do great work. I get to work with Jenny Heftelin, who's our director of client services, and I think she and I make a great team. I love working with her. So setting up the agreements, setting up the projects, trying to find wording for our clients on their invoices where they understand what they're receiving. So I always tell our internal IT guys that help me out tremendously, Matt Eshelman and his team, make sure all our finances are kept secure and safe, and that the systems I'm using are safe and reliable. I always tell them, explain to me what you're doing, or if they start using acronyms, I'll break it down in language that I understand and that I think our clients understand. So I feel very fortunate in my position and what I've been able to build it into. Like I said, it's a very small. I'm the only one that's doing the invoicing and accounts payable, but we have all our systems in place. So no paper. Our clients pay everything online. So it's great.
Do you, was there anything coming into, like you said, you kind of created the role and it was a brand new company, brand new role. Was there anything that you thought, moving into this kind of a role as this kind of accountant would be that turned out to be totally wrong? Like, did you have any misconceptions about it?
Yeah, I think when I tell people I'm the controller for this company, they go, oh, you're just in this dark little hole, getting these numbers done. And sometimes it's true. I love working out problems. So I love puzzles. And it is that. It's like the challenge of reconciling something. So sometimes you are crunching the numbers, but most of the times you're in touch with clients, you're in touch with our staff, and you're helping these clients understand what they're paying for. And it feels good. It feels good that you're working at something larger than you. So someone who's helping climate change, or children in a disadvantaged position, that makes you feel good that, hey, I'm making their life a little easier by giving them an invoice that's easy to comprehend, easy to pay. They can get in touch with me. They can get in touch with Jenny quickly to find out any questions they have. So I think, that part of it is definitely different from when I was working in, the banking world or in the government auditing world. It's definitely more open and sharing of your numbers.
It sounds like you kind of lucked into this position in a way, like it definitely wasn't a totally planned career transition. But if you were giving advice to somebody who's maybe starting out today, who loves numbers, is doing, a degree in accounting, but either like is interested in going into more on the nonprofit side, or maybe is like you were, like finding out that working at a bank isn't totally what is making them feel like good about their work. Would you have any advice for them of like how to even look for a job like this?
That's a really good question. I think kind of what I tell my own kids is, number one, work on your communication skills. So know how to ask for what you want, know what you want, but learn how to write well, communicate in the email, communicate with your fellow workers, and then figure out what your passion is. If there's something larger than you that you want to work with, if you're passionate about women's rights or the environment, there are places, those companies, those nonprofits, those people who are supporting that mission need your help. They need people of all walks of life. And if you're curious enough and if you're persistent, don't give up. It's going to be, I think any job that you walk into is just overwhelming. And so many people just say, I don't belong here. And so I say, especially to young women, you belong, show up and just keep showing up until you figure it out, because you're going to be, every time I try something new, and whether it's a work, or if I join a new bike club, or I try something that's really hard, you feel lost and you feel like, these people all look different from me. they're more buff. They're so much stronger, and they're all guys, and I don't belong. But you have to just keep showing up and make them realize that you belong. So kind of like leaning in and speaking up and knowing what you're worth. Don't underestimate your knowledge. So you've got to work really hard. Like I put a lot of work at the beginning of my career. I stayed up many nights trying to figure things out, trying to figure out the systems. And thankfully, I'm very lucky. I work with my coworkers, the internal IT guys. If I don't know how something works or something's not clicking, they fix it for me. They make sure it's safe. But yeah, I would say know how to communicate, know what your strengths are, know what you want to do, and just keep showing up. Show up on time too.
That's so interesting that you said that you just asked for what you wanted. You wanted to be able to work from home and work part-time, and they were like, sure. And I think sometimes, in our careers, we're kind of like, oh, they'd never agree to that. It's like you second guess yourself before you even ask. I have a similar story where I was actually just so had a very stressful role. And so I walked in to quit, honestly. And my supervisor's supervisor actually was the woman I talked to. And she said, well, how can we get you to stay? And I named this number that was like insane. It was like $20,000 more than I was making at the time. And she said, done, we want to keep you. And I was like, what? So sometimes you have to just ask. And I felt like once that had happened, I had a lot more, kind of street credit to like walk into other meetings and just, like you said, say, I belong here. Like I should be here, clearly. So, sometimes you have to just ask. So I'm going to ask you, what is the best thing about your job at Community IT?
Well, I'd say the work-life balance. Like I was saying, I was able to, throughout all the years my kids were growing up, I was able to work a flexible schedule. And so many people would say, oh, you're so lucky. And then I started saying, yeah, I'm lucky, but Community IT was lucky too to have me, because I think, as you know, as a working mom, you are working two jobs and you know how to delegate your time, figure out what's important, get it done, know what's urgent and what's important, and get that done. A lot of stuff is just noise. You let that go. So I think, I was able to prioritize, but I do feel like that work-life balance is critical. I wouldn't still be here if I didn't have that work-life balance, because there's so much more in my life than my work. And that's one of the cores of Community IT. So it's not like me telling Community IT, you have to let me do this. They want you to have a rich life, whatever life that is. And then I think what I love about my position is I have a bird's eye view of the whole company. So what I can see what agreements we're doing, what projects we're doing, what clients are really needing, what they find important, which employees are in high demand. It's just amazing, because I feel like I am just up above and I can look into all the different facets of Community IT and see how it's doing. And it's a really healthy company. I think that the overall best thing about my job is that we're helping, just like our mission statement says, we're helping others meet their mission. So sometimes you feel overwhelmed that, with climate change, what's being done? And I say, well, we're supporting these. We have a lot of clients out there that are working so hard to combat climate change. So even though my job directly, maybe I don't feel like I'm doing something about climate change, I feel like I'm supporting someone who is making their job a little easier. So yeah, I'd have to say that's my favorite thing is our clients.
I it's interesting that you bring up that even at the very beginning, there was this focus on the work-life balance and having a rich, like recognizing that employees are people and they have, full lives, and you want them to bring their best self to the work, and letting you, work from home. And I think that set community IT up well to be able to take advantage of remote work. So, since 2020, we've had, some people work in the office or go into the office sometimes, but a lot of us work remotely. And then we also are supporting so many of our clients who are now working remotely or have a hybrid office where they don't go into the office all of the time. So I think that's also given us a little bit more insight into that kind of culture and like what makes those arrangements work, and especially from the IT side, like how you can make it really work. So it's interesting for me to hear that was at the very beginning of the company.
It's funny, you were talking about just the work-life balance. My daughter, her whole job is change management, which is just gone gangbusters. But it's all about, all these people who are used to going into the office and working, having their bosses watch everything they do. They don't want to go back to the office. Some people do, a lot of people don't. It's really changed. And I think people like you and I, we were doing it before COVID. You're trying to juggle everything. So I say to community IT, look for the working moms and dads. They know how to juggle.
They know how to manage. Yep.
Oh yeah. You know how to get stuff done, right?
If when you are like at a dinner party or meeting someone and someone asks what you do, what do you say that community IT does?
Yeah, I tell them I do the finances. I'm a financial controller for Community IT Innovators, who we support nonprofits. And most people get that right away.
Exactly. Thank you so much for your time today, Ann. I really appreciate it. It's been lovely talking to you.
Sure, this has been fun. Thanks. Thanks so much, Carolyn.
Thank you.
Community IT does these free webinars and podcasts for our community, and we love sharing our knowledge and experience. If you have more questions or are having trouble with your IT at your nonprofit, please get in touch with us on our website, www.communityit.com, so we can start a conversation or schedule an assessment. Downloading any of our free resources there will get you signed up for our webinar reminders, and you can attend our next webinar in real time and ask our experts your own questions. If you love podcasts, please subscribe and leave us a rating to help others find this leadership resource for nonprofits.